Hello and welcome to the Penny D podcast. This is for you if you would like to sit for 20 to 30 minutes every month, relaxing your mind and just listening to my ramblings about life, love, happiness and much more. I'm your host, Penny Davis, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Giselle Goodwin.
Thank you so much for having me, Penny. Delight to be here.
No, I am so excited that you're joining us because please tell our listeners what it is you do and what your PhD is in.
Right. My PhD is in women, work, and well-being. So similar to yourself, I am Gen X, working woman. I had my own businesses for a number of years. I'm also a mother, a wife, a friend. I like to think of myself as a community-minded kind of person. And I spent most of my 30s juggling plates and feeling like none of it was adding up. Nothing was working. I know I was saying to you earlier that I grew up in a very kind of 1980s culture. So it was this idea of Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, girls can do anything, put your big girl knickers on, get in the world of work, don't rely on a man to do that for you. I definitely, bought into that whole thing, certainly growing up. And then fast forward, I spent most of my 30s feeling like I was failing, like I couldn't do right for doing wrong. I remember this particular birthday I had. I think I was about 35. I woke up this birthday morning and was like, I was angry. It was my birthday. I was like, I haven't got time to have a birthday today. I genuinely haven't got time. I had work. I had kids. I hadn't peed on my own for ages. I hadn't had time to wash my hair. And I was just absolutely frazzled. And I was fortunate enough that I had the opportunity to sell my businesses in 2018. So during COVID, I went back to university. I did this PhD. And for me, this was about having a deep dive and a think about some of these problems that working mothers have. So as I say, my topic of interest is women, work, and well-being, and trying to figure this stuff out for me, but also for my two daughters. And, how do we make the world a better place for them?
Oh, I relate. We were told we could have it all, didn't we? But we've ended up doing it all, to quote your book as well.
Yes.
So tell us about your book, because I have read this and I absolutely love it and I relate to so many points, too many to mention. But tell me about your book and where that came from.
Okay, so the book is a little bit of an exploration as to how we got here as women. So how is it that we've ended up that women's happiness has now been in decline the last 50 years? So we know that women are now less happy than we were 50 years ago and less happy relative to men. So how is it that we've got here? What is it that we need to do to make this better? I specifically focus on working mothers simply because that was my own experience. We know that working mothers experience up to 40% more stress than women without children. This shows up actually in biological stress markers in our body. We know that working mothers are 28% more likely to experience burnout than working fathers. So this is big issues for women. So talk a bit about the problems. Hopefully it's some reasonably personal, humorous anecdotes. I've vomited up quite a lot of personal information in there. As I say, part of my thesis was I interviewed a lot of other women as well. So there's lots of stories and anecdotes in there about how we got here and women's kind of place. So there's some history stuff, but actually a lot of it's very practical. So I go into, and it's a hopeful read. I wanted to make it really hopeful around what do we do? Not only is a society, what we need from society to make things better for women, but what can we do practically ourselves? Because as we know, we can't fix society overnight. There's lots of things we would like to do. So there is an activist element to my writing. But actually, what can we do as individuals? So I really unpick, a really big chunk of the book is unpicking the science of happiness, what it is, how we define it, how we get more of it, and specifically for women. So there's, you'll have your Instagram feed will be full of it. We know all these things, don't we? And exercise, meditation, diaphragmatic breathing, blah, blah, blah. All these things we get fed. And I unpick these specifically as they relate to working mothers. So, like, to give you an example, one of these things is random acts of kindness. The literature tells us that it's really good. Community is one of the big things, and connection with others. We know that we're wired for connection, right? So we know this is good, but how does this distill into the lives of women? As I say, working mothers in particular, how does this look different? Because my argument is, random acts of kindness is great. But in my experience, like, most women have done like 10 random acts of kindness before 9 a.m. on a school day. So yeah, I unpick all kinds of stuff around how do we make this better for women.
And I love that because, the truth is we were told we could have it all. And we really were that first generation that were brought up to believe you can just put off having your kids, get your career on track. It's the only thing that matters. Get your own money. And the list is endless that women could do. And whilst all of that is great, and I know, Giselle, we are not complaining that we had the opportunities and we still got them. But it just doesn't work because we just ended up doing everything, didn't we? And really struggling. And as we are the first generation, I love that you're trying to find some solutions to almost a self-created problem within womanhood. So we are trying to fix this problem, aren't we, of happiness? So difficult question here, though. Did you get to any conclusions?
I certainly did. So, there were so many things to discuss and to kind of go through in terms of women's well-being and how we make it work for us. I think one thing that really struck me was this idea that my professor had said to me at the beginning of my studies, which was that actually it's not you. She said, Giselle, all these things that you're unpicking and these struggles that you're having, it's not you, it's society. And I'd always very much been a pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of person. That relief of her saying, actually, you have to consider some of the social constraints and some of the, the soup that we're swimming in as women, some of the pressure that we get layered on us doesn't make these things easy. So I think number one, that was really interesting for me in terms of letting go of the guilt. And the other conclusions are, well, I've put them in an acronym. So I have this acronym, Empower Life. And I go through there specific things that working mothers in particular can do to make this better. So we've got things like expect less of ourselves, ask for more from others, consider doing things like optimizing your time for well-being. So, women get a lot of, we're meant to be these multitaskers and we get a lot of these to-do lists to check off. And I say we should analyze what we do and how we do it, but analyze it for well-being. So, do you enjoy in terms of your household tasks? Are you the person who loves taking the dog for a walk or dealing with the post? And think about how you delegate some of those things in your life to optimize them for well-being and not just all the stuff on our to-do list. I also talk about this idea of portfolio careers. So I do believe that everything in life has a time, a place, and a season. And that this idea that we're living longer than we ever have before, that women have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves in later life. And so we don't necessarily have to just say, right, one career for life, that's it. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
And so I think that the chapters and the seasons of our life, we can have different things that interest us at different times. And I encourage women, and I've got a free happiness manifesto download on my website, encourage women to think really kind of purposefully about what those seasons are.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Do you want to address the signs of aging or menopausal skin? Does your skin feel dry or sensitised? Try my very own brand of skincare. Skin Goal Skincare is a powerful, clinical, yet luxurious range of products, all designed with you in mind. Try it today. Get 15% off your first order. Use the code podcast15. Enjoy. Now back to the show.
So rather than this guilt, this chronic guilt that 85% of working mothers feel about this juggle. I encourage that let's be purposeful. So if we are having some time out when the kids are younger, that's okay. This is now a choice, as opposed to, and not feeling like we've missed the boat, or if it doesn't happen now, it can't happen later. So yeah, there's lots of different things I go through. But another one of my kind of key things as well is this idea of just supporting each other and lifting each other up. Because I think as women, we often do get put in these silos. We get put in the silo of career mum, stay-at-home mum, PTA mum, I don't know, fitness, whatever. We kind of end up wearing these identity badges, and it separates us from one another. It separates us. And the researchers talk about this idea of cost of comparison. We're always looking over our shoulder. Well, because I didn't do that bit, then I feel like I'm a failure, because, we're meant to be good now at everything, aren't we? This idea that we have to do everything.
Yeah.
That quote, which is, we're the daughters of feminists who said to us, you can be anything. And what we heard is, you have to be everything. It's that kind of, you have to be good. So you have to be good mother, good wife, good worker, good looking, good, all of it. And so that pressure means that if we feel like we're not performing in all of those areas, we compare ourselves, and we compare ourselves to the other women around us. We go, well, she's doing this or she's doing that. And I think we just need to celebrate it, don't we? So we need to celebrate the woman who says, right, I'm going to run the PTA. And we need to say, that's absolutely amazing, because all those things that you've done for our children in terms of, the bake sales, and that's a wonderful experience for my children. We need to celebrate the woman who's had a promotion in her law firm. And we're like, that's amazing. What wonderful kind of influence she's going to be able to have at the top of her career, and how good that's going to be. So it's just, for me, it's that tweak around just celebrating each other and coming together, rather than being in these silos that we've created, or society has created for us.
Yeah, labeling does, I like that. It does separate us, doesn't it? And you think maybe the PTA mum can't talk to the lawyer mum or the fitness mum, whatever nonsense.
Yeah.
And in terms of the big question, so society, and again, this is what I looked at in my book about Happiness Queens. And that's why, again, I was so drawn to your book. Apart from, I do just want to say, your book is written with such humour and relatability, and you have such a wonderful way with words that I devoured it, and my husband really enjoyed it. We listened to it on Audible.
Oh,
I really, I was nodding along, as I was listening, and had to keep pausing it to discuss bits that, we've spoken about, which I love. But the big, I guess, the soup element is society and how we change it. And I think we're both at lengths, aren't we, Giselle, to say we're not saying things are worse opportunity-wise for women now. We've come such a long way. But the big question is, what can we do to just nudge society along? What needs to happen?
Oh, absolutely. So you're 100% right. If I had a magic fairy wand, I would give us gender equality. And that was certainly something. I know I said I did a post on International Women's Day, and we know, and the research tells us repeatedly, that when we live in more gender equal societies, both women and men are happier. So it's a win-win. This is not up women, down men. That's not what this is about. It's about getting to a place of equality of opportunity. And it's complicated. There's various things we need in terms of government in relation to flexible working for all men and women when people become parents, really good parental paid leave, and childcare. I think we definitely need to be moving in those directions as a society. I think so. One of the reasons I called the book "Women Really Have It All." It's quite kind of a controversial phrase, isn't it? And it's so interesting because, as I say, that was the phrase I grew up with. That was the 1980s version of, can women really have it all? Women were meant to be able to have it all. And different people have different takes about what this means in society. So some people now say, and the definition I grew up with was that women should be able now, because of the feminist movement, to have it all in the same way as men, in the sense of juggling a career and family should be as easy a thing for women to do as men now because we were all equal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the stance I've come from. As I say, what people now say about that phrase is we either talk about this idea of, well, women can have it all, but just not at the same time. So we talk about the picking and the choosing bits. We also sometimes say this idea is that, you have to choose what your all is and just go with that. So some people say, because, that more culture that we have nowadays is not just work and family, it's everything, right? We want all of it. And you have to choose what your all is. And I get both of those arguments, but I also have a third argument, which is that, these stats which tell us that women's happiness is in decline, that women are burning out, are not good. And so I would argue that we need to have more of it than we're currently getting. And that comes down to equality. So there are 4 reasons, and I discuss these in the book, why having it all still looks different. And what I mean by this is for in terms of balancing career and family is different for men and women. So there's 4 reasons. So there's the ambition gap, or they call it sometimes tall poppy syndrome, greedy jobs, the domestic load gap, and the good mothering penalty. So the ambition gap is this idea that we know, there's a great McKinsey report that came out recently. Women and men are not necessarily different in their ambition. They're both equally as ambitious. It's just that ambition is not a gender congruent trait for women to have. So we reward men for their ambition. We think that's a good thing when they do it. When women are ambitious, we're like, who does she think she is?
Too much, aren't we?
Too much. Put her back in her box. What is that? Right? So ambition is not seen in the same way for men and women. And so they call this idea tall poppy syndrome. So if you imagine a waving field of poppies and one of them grows taller than the other one, we know, again, study after study shows that women are more likely to experience this phenomenon of being cut back down to size. And so therefore, we're struggling in our careers because of this gap of how we're perceived. The second reason having it all in terms of career and family is different is this idea of greedy jobs. So this was a term coined by Claudia Goldin, who won the Nobel Prize for her work on the pay gap. And she basically says that these greedy jobs, which are the jobs like the big high flyers, so your parliamentarians, your movers and shakers of the world, the tech bros, the finance guys, the lawyers, the people at the top of their game, where you need an awful lot of FaceTime, travel, those kind of jobs, just don't suit family life. And therefore, if you have a man and a woman in a heterosexual relationship, typically it is the man that goes forward in his career and the woman that takes the step back. So that is still not parity. That's still not equitable. And it means that we have a lot more men still at the very tops of those big, important careers where they make a difference for society, the laws that are made, the policies that are passed, the medical inventions. We needed a lot more women in medicine. We're getting more, but they're in the middle tier and not the top tier of medicine. So that's the second one, greedy jobs. The third one is the domestic load gap. So we know that a recent report told us fewer than 7% of couples spread the domestic load equally. We are still there. We know when it comes to total workload that, and studies measure total workload as work inside the home and outside the home. And so we know when it comes to total workload that women are still doing, depending on the study, half an hour to an hour a day more than men. This adds up to 2.5 years of our life.
The second shift.
A second shift. And as I say, I argue women have a third shift as well. So we have inside the home, outside the home, and the work of living in a female body.
Yeah, love it.
So the work of living in a female body, just in terms of menopause and periods and birthing and breastfeeding and the beauty pressure and safety considerations and, all that kind of stuff as well. So there's a significant workload that women have. And when they measure this in the studies, the extra hour a day inside the home, they don't account for emotional labor. They don't account for that women's third job that I described. That's solely adding up hours of, domestic work and paid work. So there's a significant gap there in terms of the domestic load. And then finally, we have this good mothering penalty. So this sees that the bar for being a good mum is far higher than the bar for being a good dad.
Oh, yeah.
We know this, right? So we know that, it's fine. Good dads provide financially, rock up to sports day, have interesting conversations with their kids, yes, but good mothering is in person, time bound, emotionally nurturing, self-sacrificing, like self-sacrificing duties. I remember this one incident I had where my kids, I was taking my kids swimming on a Saturday morning when they were little. And I was busy getting myself dressed after, everybody gets out of the pool and you're all shivering and you're cold and you're whatever. And I was busy getting myself dressed, shoving my legs into my jeans. And another mother came over to me with my little girl and she wrapped her in a big towel and handed her to me,
Oh,
big ball of arms and legs, and was like, I couldn't bear to see her cold. And I remember feeling so shamed. So shamed. Like, really, you cannot get dressed before your children get dressed. That's terrible. So this bit about the self-sacrificing bit of motherhood is absolutely a thing. And we know that today that working mothers are spending double the amount of time on primary caregiving activity with their children than they used to spend in the 1970s. So this business about, after school activities and all this stuff that we do nowadays, this intensive mothering is definitely on the rise. So women are driving themselves mad in all kinds of different spheres, and it still looks different. So we're still not there at parity. And that's hence. So there is a thread of activism through my book as well, in terms of, yes, what can we do with individuals? What are these things that we can affect? But actually also, what do we need from society to make this better?
Oh gosh, my head. And I was just thinking that towel incident. I think Bridget Jones would call that a jellyfish, wouldn't she? Where it seems so caring. Oh, here you go. But actually, stop being a bad mum and getting dressed first. But in my book, I always say about the aeroplane, put your oxygen on before everybody else's, because as women, we can't help anybody else until we've helped ourselves. But society doesn't allow that, does it? And it's very much frowned upon. Yeah, there's so many. I had a lot of light bulb moments reading your book, a lot I could relate to but hadn't articulated in my mind. The third shift I find fascinating because I'd never really thought. I know that we have all of that, even down to our safety. Things like, I was out for a meal late last night and I got into my car and I scuttled round, looked into my car, just do it automatically. And then get into my car, and before I put my bag down, I've already locked it from the inside, taken a breath, checked the car park, all of these things that we do and we just do it. But I've never heard it. So I love that third shift concept, even just those couple of examples. I'm exhausted thinking about, but we just do them, don't we?
We do.
It's not even the beauty stuff. On top of all that, we're supposed to be sex sirens as well. And, be waxed and plucked and dyed and for
All of it. All of it. Yeah.
all of it. So, so much to go out there. And I know there's a lot more in the book as well. So I would really encourage our listeners to go out and buy that book, because I know my husband really enjoyed it, but that awareness gives a different perspective for men. And I've got to say, my husband's very good. I think he would expect me to be married to somebody quite well up on the equality, and he is. But yeah, I think it's important that men listen to this as well, or read the book. And I love that it's in Audible as well, Giselle, because as busy women, multitasking,
Absolutely.
to listen while we're doing other things. Yeah, so I just look. Is there anything else that you want to just leave our listeners with, as almost a little Giselleism or a word of wisdom as we wrap up the interview?
I suppose that the main takeaway for me would be it feels at the moment, and I'm sure lots of people are feeling this, there's a lot of divisive rhetoric. We're feeling more polarized, aren't we? So, we have
Very much so.
the orange men in charge. There has been, it's kind of escalated quite noticeably and significantly in recent weeks. And I feel like there's a need for us to come together.
Mm.
Everybody has this negativity bias, don't we? And that's how the social media algorithms work. They keep us clickbaited. They keep us, in that state of constant fear. And they feel like there's work to do to just come together. I love that Joe Cox, the NP quote, who said, we have far more in common than that which divides us.
Absolutely.
And I think just looking for that, and one of the longest studies on happiness shows that when it comes to what makes us happy, relationships are the key.
Mm.
And we are wired for connection, and it's to do with the quality of our relationships with other people. So we need to keep talking about these things. And not only do we need to talk, but we need to listen, because that's all any of us wants, isn't it? To be heard and to be understood. And so I think trying to just make that common ground with people, certainly in the current climate, is one of the best things that we could all do for our individual happiness and well-being.
I couldn't agree more with that. One of the things that makes me really sad about just the time we live in now is we've lost the ability to have discourse with people we don't agree with. And they are my favourite conversations. Like you say, we become so polarised, and there's no need for it, because, there's good. And I think I'd echo that, really, to just find common ground, open a conversation with people where you don't know much about something, or you want to learn more, or you don't agree. Have that conversation. I've changed my mind so many times on so many things when I just don't understand why people don't do it anymore. But anyway, they're missing out, aren't they? That's how we learn.
That is how we learn. And we wouldn't want everybody to be the same, would we? You have to thrive on difference. And it's interesting. And it keeps you connected. It helps your well-being when you take that time to really understand. If you'd walked a mile in somebody's shoes, where are they coming from? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where can people find your book? Just give us the title again, Giselle, please.
So it's called Can Women Really Have It All? And you can find me on Amazon. I'm in Waterstones, but probably easiest place is to click me on Amazon or Audible. And you can go to my website, gisellegoodwin.com, and you can download. I have a free newsletter there if you want to sign up for my newsletter, if the topics of women, work, and well-being are of interest to you. I'm also on Instagram at Giselle Goodwin Writes, or I do quite a lot of LinkedIn as well for business stuff. So you can find me there too.
And we can find your happiness manifesto as well on your website.
That's right. So I've got a happiness manifesto, which is a free download. So if you download that for free, it gives you that little starter to just have a think about where you want to go in your own life and what works for you. Yeah.
Oh, love it. Thank you so much, Giselle. I've loved to have that.
Thank you for having me. That's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much, Penny.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I've had a great time. I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, I would love to hear back from you. So all that leaves me is to say, have fun, be happy, and join me next time. Don't forget to hit subscribe for all of my episodes.